Hello. I wonder whether at the moment you feel like life is moving quickly or slowly. I guess for many it will have felt like a very big slowdown over the last couple of months. For others, maybe things have really moved up a gear or two in terms of the intensity of work life or the intensity of family life. In a weird way, I guess for many of us a combination of the two has taken place. Think about it in this way. At the moment, your life is moving at 67,000 miles an hour. That's not some kind of metaphor. For real, you're moving at 67,000 miles an hour. Why that number? Because that is the speed at which planet Earth is moving through space as it hurtles its way around the sun year by year. And we're on it. It might not feel like we're going anywhere, but we really are. And what's more, we can't stop it. The Earth is on an unstoppable path, speeding through space. It's a stunning thought. As we journey on through Mark's Gospel, we see Jesus' kingdom hurtling on unstoppably. People certainly tried to stop it. They tried to slur his reputation, as we saw last time. They tried to accuse him of breaking the law. They even plotted to kill him. And yet Jesus carries on regardless of their efforts. He's unstoppable. In today's world, Jesus' kingdom is advancing unstoppably too. Reports show that since lockdown started, sales of the Bible and downloads of Bible apps have gone through the roof. Millions of people, even here in the UK, who don't normally go to church, are dropping into online services and listening to messages like this, finding out what Jesus is all about, having time to reflect on the big questions of life. Like the earth hurtling through space, God's kingdom is unstoppable. And that's what we see in today's reading, Mark chapter 3, verse 7 through to 19.
Jesus withdrew with his disciples to the sea, and a great crowd followed, from Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem and Idumea, and from beyond the Jordan and from around Tyre and Sidon. When the great crowd heard all that he was doing, they came to him. And he told his disciples to have a boat ready for him, because of the crowd, lest they crush him. For he had healed many, so that all who had diseases pressed around him to touch him. And whenever the unclean spirits saw him, they fell down before him and cried out, "You are the Son of God." And he strictly ordered them not to make him known. And he went up on the mountain and called to him those whom he desired, and they came to him. And he appointed 12, whom he also named apostles, so that they might be with him, and he might send them out to preach, and have authority to cast out demons. He appointed the 12, Simon, to whom he gave the name Peter, James the son of Zebedee, and John the brother of James, to whom he gave the name Boanerges, that is, sons of thunder, Andrew and Philip, and Bartholomew, and Matthew and Thomas, and James the son of Alphaeus, and Thaddeus, and Simon the Canaanian, and Judas Iscariot, who betrayed him.
Remember what we've seen in our last few times in Mark's Gospel. There was a group of religious leaders in Jesus' day who were out to stop him, particularly a group called the Pharisees. How successful were they in stopping him? Well, actually, they could hardly have been less successful, certainly at this stage. Jesus is more popular than ever. Let me show you this on a map. These place names won't mean much to most of us. Jesus is in the region of Galilee, that's up here in the north of the traditional boundaries of Israel. And a great crowd is following Jesus from Galilee, but also from Jerusalem, that's in the south, 80 miles away. And from Idumea, that's even further south, 120 miles away. And from beyond the Jordan in the east, that's often been a different country. And from around Tyre and Sidon, that's always been a different country to the north. Jesus is becoming an international phenomenon. These days it would take something quite special to gather people from a region the size of, say, Ireland, like this one. And what about in those days with people travelling on foot? This is spectacular. You're talking about thousands of people travelling for several days to go and see Jesus. Why are people travelling such a long way? Mark tells us here it's because Jesus had healed many. They're coming for healing. So these aren't just healthy people on the road, These are ill people making these long journeys. And yet Jesus' success comes at a cost. We're told here that the crowds are in danger of crushing Jesus physically. And of course, Jesus' message is in danger of being crowded out as well. Imagine a medical professor who's got the best technique for treating COVID patients, but who's also very close to finishing work on a COVID vaccine, the first in the world. Well, demand for their time in hospital is going through the roof, and yet that's not her priority. The vaccine will have a far bigger and longer lasting effect. Well, something a bit like that is going on here with Jesus. The message has got out that Jesus can heal the sick. But as we've seen so far in Mark's Gospel, that's a short-term solution because anyone who's healed by Jesus will die again. The lasting rescue Jesus came to bring was to bring us into an everlasting relationship with God, one which starts now and which beats death, so that we have a new life in eternity. How do we get that new life? By repenting, turning around, and by trusting in Jesus, making him the King of our life, our saving King. So as we saw back in part 7, Jesus here once again prioritizes his message. In verse 9 he asks for a boat so that he can have a platform for preaching, where people won't crush him, but can focus instead on listening from the land. In verse 12 he silences the evil spirits so that they don't frustrate his message. He wants to explain who he is on his own terms. But most importantly here, he appoints 12 leaders. He calls them apostles, which means messengers. And his plan is to send them out to preach his message and drive out evil. Jesus is going to train them up for the job first, so that he can multiply the number of people putting his life-giving message out there. Why the number 12? Well, Mark repeats it twice here and lists the 12 names. In the book of Promise, the Old Testament, 12 symbolizes the people of God. There were 12 tribes of Israel, and each tribe had a senior leader. And so Jesus here, rejecting the leadership of the Pharisees, who were rejecting him, instead appoints a new leadership of God's people, the 12 messengers, 12 apostles. People from pretty humble backgrounds, as we've seen, like fishermen. These 12 have the job of passing on the authentic message of Jesus. Their message, given to them by Jesus, is the very same message that's making such huge headway today. Did you know today there are more Christians in the world, in more different countries, than there ever have been at any point in history? It's the message of the apostles, these very people listed here, that's going out there, that God is using as his tool to bring people into his kingdom. So let's take this message seriously. There's no division between Jesus and people like Peter, James, and John, because they are his messengers. He gave them the message. Jesus longs for us to listen to his word day by day by day, to grow closer to him, to draw near to him in relationship, to grow in our love for him as we hear from him in his word. And that way his unstoppable kingdom, with his life-giving, death-beating power, comes into our lives more and more day by day. Why don't you join me in praying for that to happen? Lord God, we thank you for Jesus. Thank you that he is the real King of this world and that his kingdom is unstoppable. Thank you for the news that more and more people are hearing about Jesus, even during this crisis. May that be the case around the world, as well as here in the UK. Please would you help us to love your word. May we grow to know you more and more, day by day. And may you bring your unstoppable kingdom more and more into our lives through your word. And we ask in Jesus' name. Amen. That's all for today. See you next week.